this a lot of thinking, Regina?
No, not really.
Okay.
I don't know. It might be.
Oh,
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, the whole deal is. Let me be quiet. Some recording. Okay, let's see. Alright. Alright, so today we're going to talk about Module 5, Lesson 2, and we're going to do some vertical alignment. So we're going to investigate vertical alignment for the Louisiana State Standards of Mathematics. Alright, this vertical alignment process is designed to do a few times throughout the year with K through 5, K through 8, K through 12 educators, and it's done to show how the standards relate to a big idea. So this process is not designed as a divide and conquer situation, but like your kids, they're like, oh, you put them in group work, they say, oh, I do number 1, you do number 2, I do number 3. No, it's all about the conversation. So this process is, the power of this process is the collaborative conversation that leads to a common understanding of how a big idea develops over time across a number of grade levels. Alright, so with this in mind, we're going to go to the PowerPoint and look at the first 2 steps that we need to look at on the slide. And it's talking about the main idea. The big idea. The big idea would be, the study for this session is going to be using unit fractions to reason about numbers. Alright, so usually they tell us, okay, develop or come up with your own big idea, but for this particular activity, it's preset so we can study the module of numbers and fractions. So what is a big idea? A big idea is a concept that takes time to develop across grade levels, yet it is narrow enough to support a focused conversation involving just a few standards at each grade level. So with that being in mind, thinking about what the big idea that we're going to study today, which is what? What's the big idea?
using unit fractions to reason about numbers.
Right. Think about, talk among yourselves with the person beside you within your group. Talk about, what does that look like? What do students need to know to truly understand fractions at a conceptual level? And what do students need to know and be able to do to demonstrate understanding and proficiency? So think about, how does the story of fractions develop across grade levels?
Well, they need to know that a fraction is part of a whole.
Right.
Is,
Right, and you have to have that understanding as a basic first of all.
Right.
And
And
let us speak up. Okay. Oh, so we know how to help.
they need to, so they need to know that fractions, they need to know that fractions make up a whole.
Mm-hmm. They need to know what unit fraction is.
Yeah.
Well, some of them don't have understanding really.
And they don't, some of them don't understand, well, a lot of kids don't understand fractions.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the first thing you say when you put a fraction in a problem is they don't, they don't wanna do it.
Right.
They'd rather do a whole number or something. So, like you said, the understanding of what a fraction is number one. Part of a whole, when you turn into a decimal,
It could be
You know,
reduced.
it can be reduced, it can be set up as a ratio, because you
Yeah.
can set it up as a
Right.
ratio when you get, on down the line and whatever, but the main thing is, to me, is that them learning what a fraction really is. And that's, the first thing they wanna say in a fraction, what they say? Numerator and denominator,
Mhm.
that's what that's all they say is a numerator and denominator, but they don't understand, like you said, that is a part of a whole, y'all need to come on over to this conversation.
We're listening. I don't know part of the whole, because on a smaller level, we start off like part of a pie, part of a pizza, we try to relate it to them. Would you want 1 out of 8, or would you want 2 out of 8, and try to get them to relate, like how many slices of pie would you want, how many slices of pizza would you want, and try to say, it's a part of this pizza.
But then they need to be able to relate, 2 eighths to a 1/4,
Mm-hmm.
or,
That reducing what you.
Yeah.
So
They
you
need
have
to
different
simplifying.
understanding.
that that's the same, what's the same amount.
Okay, so can I ask this question? In you guys, cause you're lower level, do y'all say simplifying or do you say reduce? Does it, I mean, how do they address that?
I don't get to that part. We only learn about
The
parts of a whole. We don't
Okay.
even talk about numerator and
Denominator.
denominator. We talk about parts of a whole.
Right.
And we really start off with quarter and halves.
Mhm.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if it's 4/8 or 1/2. We just only talk about quarters and halves.
Okay. I was just wondering, because on a bigger scale, like, you know,
Right.
some people say reduce, some people say simplify, and
Right.
I just wondered.
And I think, one big thing that, people or just students in general think about, they forget that fractions are numbers. They can be counted, like there are fractions, there are parts between 1 and 2.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can count, you know, and it is a comparison ratio, it's a comparison between the part and whole. Alright, so, when discussing the verb alignment, we need to study the standards for each grade level that are related to the big idea, and discuss how the idea develops and changes. But it's not necessary for us to study every standard that's connected to it, it's just an overall study of the standards and how they connect. So for today, this is what we're gonna do for today. The first part of our activity will be that I'm gonna give you a set of standards. I have to be careful because I turned them all upside down here. I'll give you a set of standards, and I want you to be able to put these in order from kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade. Kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade. And I want you to pay attention. It says for each standard strip, it has a actual language of one or more standard from kindergarten to 6th grade. So pay attention. Oh, I just did it so man. You can work together. It's a group activity, but you know it's COVID. I know if y'all want y'all on top, but I think we all do it in this group.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Alright, so, but it's actually a group activity.
Probably the same around here, right?
But if everybody want to look at read it as together, you know, we want to wait on
So
nobody.
it's the same thing?
It's the same thing.
Okay, let me look at each, you know, my own, and then I can.
Then we work together.
So when you open up the sheet, you will see that none of these have the grade coding on it.
No.
Grade level
Yeah,
coding.
the first step.
So you have to read each standard strip with your table and determine the order of the standard from kindergarten to 6th grade, and based on your experiences, how your group thinks the big idea is going to develop. And once again, think about what we're talking about, what the big idea is.
Yes, we did. I know that I can't hear.
No, third
With
grade.
shapes and like your-
Wait, I think I have 2 of the same one.
Oh, wait a minute.
With shapes.
This one, this one, I think it's the same.
What?
Or
Is it not?
second, third, 4 equal parts. Second, no, they're not the same.
Big, if you're reading it, you're big. Extend us and refraction fluence.
What's your name? Okay, I see.
5, 6, 7.
Oh, Lord, I'm finna write that and have to think.
Multiply fraction by a whole number.
I think count.
Denominators up to 100. Oh.
Yes, kindergarten.
Cardinality.
Wouldn't this one be kindergarten? Count to tell the numbers of objects, cause they gotta do that first.
Is that this one?
And keep
right.
And keep in mind that kindergarten, we want to be on the bottom because that's what.
Oh,
We start at the bottom?
Yeah,
Oh,
foundation is
yeah,
starting
Okay,
at
okay, we do
kindergarten.
foundation.
So you
Okay,
put your
okay, okay. Now we
foundation.
start.
Yeah, don't be up from the top, be up from the bottom up.
Okay.
So they need to know the numbers.
Shapes and their
Yeah,
attributes.
okay.
Shapes and their attributes.
Okay.
You see, I put my glasses up.
Kindergarten
so I
through,
see.
kindergarten first.
Oh, 4.
Am I right here? This is kindergarten.
And 4.
You asking me? Yeah. Oh, I think you want to write it.
Okay,
Good. I thought you was talking to her. This, make sure you pay attention to the language. I always do. Yeah, this, you're doing right with the progression, figure out how it builds from grade to grade.
This is mine.
conversation going, it's all about the conversation we have between each
Okay,
other.
so we said this was the one. Alright, so then what they need to,
I mean, one more thing is, I'm trying to determine between these two, what's the difference? You know what I'm saying? I got it.
Which one? This one and this one? This one and which one?
These two right here, that is right there, develop, no, that's the extend, both of these say develop, understand.
One says the hundred and one says the this.
I don't have something, I don't have something.
No, I can do it.
Mine's different.
Huh?
You may have, cause
Huh?
She has
I got these two.
but I don't have, I just have
Huh?
one of these.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Huh?
So I should have two of these, right?
No, they not the same. They different sizes. They not the same size.
Represent.
I'm trying to figure out how many these two. What's the same?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So that's what I
What's
was
the
saying.
same? That's what this one.
She had 2
You had 8.
she had 8.
Okay. I don't have a 7, I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what, okay. That's why everybody like, I only got one of them like that,
She
okay.
had 2 of the same.
Okay,
So
so we know which one goes to
This
the bottom.
right here, wait, this one would be more close to the one where they are multiplying and dividing fractions. Right here, for example, create story, context, 2/3 divided by 3/4. That's gonna be more 6th grade.
I got that on the
I can't
bottom.
see.
I got it on the top. 'Cause I got
Yeah,
it on the
yeah,
bottom.
yeah,
That's
on the
the
bottom.
bottom.
So which one you got yours?
Application, that one right there is gonna be like
Let me come around
top.
that, 'cause I
Top,
can't see.
yeah. Okay, up here.
And then we said the count's gonna be at the bottom.
Yeah.
I got that.
Okay. Multiplying fractions by whole numbers.
Where is it? I can see.
Okay.
That's under this one right here.
Reason of shapes and their attributes, putting them in, I think that's something.
Okay,
One
yeah.
part right
But
there.
one of these, one of these.
It's always like,
I don't teach that right, there's one thing to do first.
am I wrong? Am I right?
What's the difference in it?
Okay, right here where it says understanding to decomposing into more equal shares creates smaller
That's
shares.
after that.
So this one, so it's gonna go like this.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I was
Would you
thinking.
think reason, shapes and reason, the attributes? Did you have yours like that?
Which one you have?
They're gonna do,
Is this one you
This
think
is
is
first, this
kindergarten?
is second. Kindergarten first and second. Is that what you got?
Kindergarten. And then you got this is first, and then this second.
Well, because this one says, understanding these examples and decomposing into more equal shapes to create smaller shares. This one doesn't, yes it does, recognize that equal shares,
Identical
identical whole.
have the same shape, do not have the same shape, but this one is decomposing into
Yeah.
more equal shares and smaller shares and describing a whole.
So wouldn't this one come before that?
I don't know. I'll be in 3rd and 4th grade.
Well, I will say this, make sure you, this kindergarten, you told me this is kindergarten, make sure you're starting at the
I
bottom.
know, I mean, I got mine going the way they got theirs going. Look, I'm just like, I am.
You got to
Yes,
train,
yes,
you gotta
yes.
build, you gotta build up the ladder.
Yeah,
Shares,
good luck.
describe the shares using the words half, thirds, and half of, a third of, and describe the wholes, 2 halves, 3 thirds, and 4 fourths. Okay, partition circles, I don't always read all my stuff. I know I don't. Partition circles and rectangles into 2.
This one says use phrases. Partition circles into equal to describe the shares and using the words halves, fourths. And use phrases half of, fourth of, quarter of. To me, that's a little bit more than just describing as a whole or a half.
So which one comes second? Second.
I think this one.
Alright, we got a couple more
Yeah,
minutes.
say y'all time.
We got a couple more minutes and we'll
For
talk
me,
about it.
middle, I usually looked at the
elementary.
That's what we struggled in at the time. We really should work together, see.
And see,
Lord.
I'm over here trying to figure out what the little bitty ones do.
Yeah, y'all should have.
And I got kindergarten, that was no problem.
Right, y'all should have worked with us.
But you see how important it is for everybody to know how it feels, so that you won't be isolated within your own little,
Great.
grade.
Oh, you got an empty roll there.
Now, I know I've seen it.
This is gonna be down here, this is gonna be preparing, this one gonna be right here. This one gonna be add. They're gonna add before they can, no, they're gonna compare before they can add. I think that's the way, alright, so,
Alright.
let me throw this question out to you. How do you think, the language of the standard help you place them in the progression? What was, give me some examples of how the language of these standards help you put them in order according to the way you place them.
But when you read them, and most of them were saying the same thing, except for they added some words to it, like decomposing or you know, that's what made you determine multiplication and division. You know, you gotta add and subtract, like she was saying, before you do that. And then, and it depends on comparing, because sometimes you can compare the shapes, but then you gotta come down here and compare fractions. So you gotta know, you got to be able to, if you're gonna compare fractions and their denominators are not the same, you gotta be able to equivalent, you know, make them equivalent.
And then, anybody else, what about you guys? How do you think the wording of the standard help you to place the standard in the progression of
But
order?
it built on itself. Like we counted, then we reasoned, then we developed, then we extended, then we had to apply.
Yeah. And so you know, in the lower grades, it's more the conceptual, the validity of the foundation is, and then it starts to move more abstract.
But you know,
Right.
Really, it's hard.
Alright, so who won?
Oh my goodness, see, I already know.
So what's that?
oh, cause this goes into this.
So this is right
This
answer?
is,
Yeah,
yeah,
so they-
you're right. I think what I'm saying is,
Wait,
I think this is the end part of this right here.
we got to this backward.
Which one?
Petitions,
What's that?
circles,
The first two?
2 and 3.
They
Four
do this,
reports. We got that right.
they do this one before they do this one.
They decompose before they,
See, that's why I had it at first.
okay, I know.
So I had it right at first.
Okay, you got
And then changed my mind because they said it was right.
You better go to your first name.
Yeah,
But I had it right,
you
but I
must
thought
have
I
next one.
Oh, no, you're right, okay.
You may tell me I changed my mind because they said.
This one, extend.
That's what I just said, cause I said, this is at the
Because I'm thinking they not gonna do third.
That's all.
That's what I thought.
So when I looked
Then
at
it
it,
goes
this
third,
was
next.
Right.
Okay,
That was my mind.
that's when I looked at these.
And I'm thinking, you know what, I think you're the little folks.
Cause that's multiplication, that's division, that's what I did.
Hey, you know your country is.
Right.
See, right here,
I did too.
I would like to make a statement that we
Got it right.
got it right.
Well, see, my mindset was different than theirs, but I had it right.
Alright.
Oh, that part, now I ain't got up to the high.
Alright, so I got a question for you. Alright, so were there any standards that you thought were intended for one grade level, but then you had to move? Was there anything you said, well, I thought it was right here, but now I see it had to be second grade, this is which one?
We had the first and second grades backwards.
And what do you think made it decides, you know, why did you do that, and what made the second grade, the first grade and second grade?
I thought that they would have to decompose into more equal shares to create smaller shares after they realized being able to identify that a whole was not, didn't have to, or parts of a whole didn't have to look the same, it could still be, I don't know why.
And anybody wanna add on, say, what's the difference between, why you think the first grade standard was the first grade standard instead of the second grade standard? What was the difference?
First grade, oh, go ahead.
You go ahead, do yours, no, you birthday.
First grade just kind of based it on like a clock, we only learned about the half and the hour. They only gave them two things. So we only learned about half and fourths.
Mhm.
So we also related to the clock.
Right.
Half an hour, then, you know,
I see the
see,
difference.
then
This one has
Third.
half a third,
That's
third.
it.
And see, that's where I,
That's
they
right.
can't draw that
lower
yet.
complexity.
Oh,
You
I
know,
didn't
y'all
see
can see
that.
that's where
I
I'm
didn't.
going.
right.
Cause I said third.
There's
Okay,
more.
Yeah.
More
Okay,
different.
I guess I was just, my
Yeah.
eyes was thinking that was in this too.
Yeah, me too, I
That's
read
why-
it, I put it in there.
I thought the
Like
only
you-
thing that changed was the
Yes.
decomposing.
Alright, so we're gonna move on to the second part of the activity, which is we're gonna take these standards. I'm gonna give everybody. Wait, you don't need to.
You want us to put these back?
You need one set.
Okay.
One set.
What year was that, baby?
One here, let's put them in. Alright, so the second part of the activity, what we're gonna do is we're going to take our standards and we're going to paste them on, tape them on the chart paper. On the far left, you're gonna put down the grade level. Remember, we're building from the bottom, so the bottom's gonna be what? Kindergarten, that's right. You're gonna put K, kindergarten, we're standing for kindergarten, and we're gonna paste, tape all the way up. Now, on the third column, so you're gonna have your grade level, your standard, the third column, the far right, you're gonna talk about how it progressed. What was different between the kindergarten and first grade? What was the level progression? What did you see different that they did in the first grade, but they don't do in kindergarten? And we're just gonna build up. What's the difference? What's the change? What's the progression?
Okay.
Okay. And make sure at the top you put down the big idea. What's the big idea?
Using fractions,
About numbers.
There we go.
Alright.
Oh,
You done melted your tape.
I had it in the car.
Well, it melted, look.
Oh my goodness. This show big.
It's all right, we can,
We can use it, I can still use it.
well, you don't need that much, huh?
No,
You can pull it out. I
No, it'll work.
you just crooked.
Yeah, we just do it like this right here. There it is, there you go. Just use it. You know,
Well,
just-
that's crooked actually when you
Yeah, we do it this way.
Oh my goodness, Miss Bean.
What she
Are you
do?
OCD?
Yes,
What she do?
it was,
Oh, yeah, I know about that. Yeah, I'm gonna have straight to that.
Let me just start taking.
I can't do it, I can't do it cricket either.
you were doing fine,
Here you
sweetie.
go.
Oh, she got some, look.
See, cause I was hearing it, even though it's cricket, I can make it straight.
Oh, so that messed me up, because I need two right there.
Don't forget you gotta put the tie at the top. So
Oh,
we gotta put a timer.
man.
I'll run it the
the
same.
big idea.
Oh, no, that's not it.
That's not what on the side. We can put that at the top.
We'll make it work now. It will work.
We gotta put what at the top?
Your big,
The
the
big
big
idea.
idea.
Oh, write the sentence, the big idea.
But we
Use
can make it
it
go across there and make it pretty.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying. We are going to,
What color you want?
why don't we, what do you call it? One color, another color, another color.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
Alright,
I'm gonna do using this and black.
Okay, I'm gonna do clay in green. Yay. What about,
What,
what do you want?
just
Red or
do,
blue?
do, red,
Okay.
and then we're gonna do, that's not red.
Oh, Lord.
We're gonna do green, red, blue. How about that? And that way, you know, alternate.
I don't know.
Green, red, blue, we're making a pattern, that's part
So
of.
you bring it again?
Yes, it's a
Okay.
pattern. We're gonna make a pattern like the kids have to do, green, red, blue.
Alright, sweetheart, you get to do 4.
And
You
blue,
get to do 5.
Well, y'all take my.
We were smarter and not harder.
And C.
and green.
Alright, let's see what's different. This is the first one.
Okay, first one.
Wait, 2.
We gotta write it.
Where is it? Oh, there it is, okay.
Understand the relationship between numbers and quantities, connecting, make connect. Counting to cardinality, understanding each success number, name referring to a quantity that is one larger than the other.
So I'm gonna put one.
So it's this one is building on the numbers, like 1, and then 2 is 1 larger than 1, and 3 is 1 larger than 2.
Alright, so now we put.
And that's how I understood that, is that right?
Mm-hmm. So when we teach kids, we call that count.
I walked in on the end of the conversation.
Okay, so like this, in this one, they are understanding that one number, the next number is a building of 1 larger.
Right.
So 1, and then 2 is 1 larger than 1, and 3 is 1 larger than 2. So that's what they're building on.
It's counting. I'm like,
Yeah.
cause they feel the numbers,
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
this is pretty much counting.
Yeah. Okay, so we need to write that right there.
Mm-hmm. So who writing?
You can.
It's with the green, because you got the green right here.
I gotta turn it
Over
up.
here.
Turn it just a little bit. Just a little bit. So are we calling this consecutive numbers? What we call it?
So can we use that word for kindergarten?
Oh, this is you guys
This-
talking.
this is for-
Oh, so it's not, okay, so I didn't know.
So
Okay.
what do we wanna call it?
Consecutive order. I mean,
Counting in consecutive order, what?
understanding that the numbers build on each other in consecutive order.
That sounds good.
Understanding. Understanding.
Like me now.
That's why I looked at it like, something wrong. That numbers, build, right,
Yeah,
on,
each other.
So I would say,
in consecutive order.
like, describe part.
Yeah.
Name part.
Order, right,
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
okay.
Alright, number 2, okay, so then in this one, they are learning that,
So I would
Okay.
say.
Some smaller shares.
Yeah, okay.
Partition circles and rectangles into 2 and 4 equal shares. Describe the shares using the words half or quarters, and use the phrases half or fourth of, quarter of. Describe the whole as 2 of or 4 of the shares.
okay,
So how is
We
So
talk about
this
in
one-
fractions down
right here, they are building on that, the whole numbers, there are parts of a whole number.
Yeah.
Yeah, this,
Okay, so that, up here we're gonna say, a whole number can, what?
Be built, or can be put in,
Partition
in
into
parts,
A whole
like-
number can be partitioned into parts.
mhm,
yeah.
about half and a quarter.
Right.
But do we have, oh yeah, cause the next one said a third. and
Yeah.
stuff.
A whole number,
Halves, fourths, and quarter.
whole number can,
Be
So
partition.
here I would say,
wait.
You supposed to read, you can read it.
What is it?
Finish it, just read it. Give me that green. Thank you.
You supposed to, okay, you gonna be the marker,
I am.
marker
Yes.
handler. B,
what did you do here?
They
What
did
did
down
you-
to,
Yeah, so in
Petition.
the kindergarten, we were mostly working with what?
numbers.
Yeah, and pretty much whole numbers, correct?
Right.
But when they were in first grade, they would
Was it
do
into what?
partition.
Parts,
these different
parts. And
fraction
then this one right here only gonna do
Oh, just go ahead. right?
pass and fours.
Yeah.
And then
Pass,
the rest
fours,
parts.
Add on to it, yeah.
Pass and
Well,
forth.
pass,
Pass,
course,
course,
operation, use
quarters.
their attributes.
Yeah, that's
That's
the
just
same
a whole
thing.
course.
Course,
Yeah.
right.
Quarter halves.
And
Well, one
Or
of them say
partition
half,
into partition to quarters and
They
what's
can,
a half?
that's the.
I guess so they, cause they'll know that a quarter and a fourth may be the
Like-
same.
Yeah,
Cause
quarter
like
is
your
half,
Reasoning,
half,
and
reasoning,
half.
because
they're
that's like
using
three
it
different
for-
ones.
Yeah,
Or such as.
But that's like
like
three
for clocks, cause it maybe talked about clocks before. Maybe.
Partition.
That's one thing come up with, reason why they use quarters and fours.
But that, I mean, you would probably
Parts.
teach that either way. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You have to do-
Pass and
It said half, fours, and quarters.
yeah, it said that. Are you hot?
you're like, you're like, you British.
I know it.
I'm done.
They don't take a lot to make you hide though.
No, yeah, it don't.
It does not take a lot.
Give me that pen, please. You may have blue.
So this one,
What's the change?
this one breaks it down even further into
They
okay,
got
thirds, half, third, and a half of a third.
Which will be a six.
Yeah,
So that's the progression, that's the.
So they're adding in half of,
third, half of, yeah. They're adding in a third and then half of a third.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how do we write that?
And it
Give me
says-
something.
So, I would say partitioning even in
Partition,
the,
partition parts into, partition
Partition
parts,
the numbers
into smaller parts.
into,
Yeah,
partition parts into smaller parts.
and then, what parts are they? What you said it
Partition
was?
parts
third,
into
third,
thirds
And half,
half of.
Right.
Okay.
thirds and half.
Partition. This one right there.
Mm-hmm.
Parts.
Holes into more parts.
Into,
What parts?
Describe
Huh?
the holes.
What parts?
what y'all said?
Into, okay, partition
partition
holes,
parts into
holes, numbers
thirds
into thirds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, cause you wanna talk about how
and
it's
half
different
of
from
the
the first
third.
grade.
Thirds and,
A half of a third.
and,
Is that what it says?
Is that?
Half of a third.
Partition
half.
holes.
Half.
Whole numbers.
Whole numbers, okay, there you go.
So they don't go into fourth or fifth or anything like that?
I think it says
et
et cetera.
Okay, go ahead.
So we can
Okay.
say et cetera.
In
And describe.
Because
the
that's what I
whole.
was just gonna
Two
say.
halves,
Yeah.
3/3, and 4/4.
thirds.
Recognize that equal shares of identical wholes need not have the same shape.
Okay.
So
A
they
whole can be
also-
represented, a whole can be represented in many ways.
And then also a half doesn't have to be cut down just the middle. You can have this part and it still be half of it. Rather than, you see what I'm saying? Like, when you cut an apple, you don't have to cut it just this way.
Oh, gotcha.
You can cut it this way and it's still half of an
Right.
apple,
Yeah.
no matter which way you cut it.
Gotcha.
True.
Isn't that what it's saying?
Yeah.
Cause it says don't, so they don't have to be the same shape.
Right.
Hmm. Think that.
Like third grade, fourth grade, got to both to work.
Yeah, they do 1/3, 2/3.
But it doesn't mean that same grade, kindergarten, first grade.
Because they gotta introduce.
No, because if they don't know that stuff, they're
Right.
gonna have a hard time.
Yeah. To one grade.
It's rough up there, good fourth grade, if they don't know this too.
Put et cetera on there.
Et cetera.
Cause that's what I was thinking that it would just be, yeah, second, fourth, fifth, sixth, or whatever. What's the next one?
The
Green.
next one is where they start learning about denominators as 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8, and the quantity formed by one part when a whole is partitioned into B equal parts.
So they're actually now taking a number and applying it to the shape. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, having that comparison. 1/3 is 1 out of 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Is that
Well,
what
the way I see it, it also says, it's, cause it says using the with denominators 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8 on a number line.
Yeah, they gotta use a number line.
So they're learning how, where to place these numbers
On the number.
on a number line.
Yeah, they have to use a number line there.
So you're going from a less pictorial situation or to a number line that's less.
You're not gonna see
Yes.
this circle or this rectangle or
Right.
this square. You now have to use that on a number line like it's like
Straighten it
taking
out.
that
Yeah.
circle and straightening it out.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what we kinda talk about. Like the clock
So-
is now a flat line.
So taking the fraction, the picture, and now placing it on, implementing it on the
You're
number.
making it less concrete.
That's exactly what we, that's the terminology that I was trying to get. Yep.
Yeah.
It's less concrete because it's not just pictures anymore.
Yeah.
You gotta get this thing up here. More mental. Right.
But if this is, if they're working from this, getting away from all these pictures into this, why are they making them draw this stuff in
Sixth grade.
in the math?
Because, well, you know, they're just strategies, different
Yeah.
strategies
Yeah.
because kids learn differently. So you have all these different take diagrams and things of those natures because kids learn differently.
Yeah.
And some of them still don't have it.
But you don't want them to always be on that. You want to progress.
Yeah, that's
up.
what I'm saying.
The level of work has to progress up, but kids learn different. That's why I guess they give them different strategies to get to where they need to be.
Yeah. So here we need to put down that they're taking the numbers and adding denominators 2/3, 4, 2/3, 4, 6, and 8, and then putting it on a number line.
Okay. So say that we.
May not be saying that.
So how do we say this again? You saying,
There,
So is it only those numbers?
it just says one, it just says 1 with the denominator B. And then understand a fraction A over B as the quantity formed by a part or size
I'm
of
trying
one
to
B.
get it.
So it's, so 2, 6 is 1/3, is the way I'm reading it. Cause they're saying,
Those are
saying
light.
that,
Aren't they like down here?
okay, so
Yeah,
understand
that's-
that they represent a fraction 1B
That's right. That's where it gets.
on a number line, and then it says,
Increases.
where did I just read that?
Yeah, but you said A over B, that's the
That's
same
what it says,
denominator.
it right here.
But that's the same denominator.
Yeah, representing a fraction A over B on a number line diagram by marking off the length of lengths of 1 over B.
Right, I get that.
Okay,
That's putting it on the number line.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's what that is. That's taking the fraction and,
It's from 0 to 1.
what was the word I wanna use? Something about the denominator, you're gonna put on the number line.
using the denominator.
Representing, the denominator will represent the number,
The number of, as we call it, cuts or whatever.
yeah.
The
Intervals, that's the
Intervals,
okay.
yeah.
We didn't call it interval in third grade.
No, y'all probably don't.
And I was like, because I didn't want to call it cuts.
Right.
But they called it cuts.
But that's what it means, is taking that denominator and applying it to a number line, so that,
They knew that's what you used.
and that denominator makes 1.
Yeah.
Is equal to that whole.
Right.
And then each part, then the parts make up that whole.
So if it's 6 on the bottom, there are 6 parts.
Right.
They're 5
Between
lines.
0 and 1.
Yeah.
Right.
0 and 1, they're gonna be 5 lines.
You cut, make 5 cuts,
Yes,
as they say,
yes,
because the
yes.
last cut is already there.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's where the kids get confused.
Right,
Right.
because it would make
Six
sense, you're
lines.
supposed to draw 6 lines, and that's not right, because the
Right.
last one is already there. And I would sometimes say, remember, the last one's already there, or I say, don't put the last one, because you don't know how far your interval is gonna be, or how far you're gonna make those lines, because some make them tiny, some make them big.
Yeah,
And I said, don't draw the last one, then you draw 6,
right.
and that messes up too.
Okay,
So, right.
so take the
Or intervals, we can say intervals, because this is about us.
It's us.
Okay.
Understand that intervals
The denominator
Represents
the intervals.
on the number line.
Yeah.
And be able to plot, I guess they'd have to put them on the number line too.
Understand.
Explain equivalence of fractions with the denominators 2, 3,
So they're gonna do
special
that
cases,
too.
so they're gonna compare.
Yeah, equivalence, I think, is introduced
Yeah,
Yeah,
in the
the-
third grade.
grade.
Yeah, cause they know that four over four is one
Right.
at all times, and that 8 over 4 is 2. You
4 over 8 is, no,
No, 8
8
over
over
4.
4
Did I
is
say
2.
4 over 8?
No, you said 8 over 4, that's
Oh, I
2.
said it right, okay.
I have a problem with my children.
Say
When they
that.
do one half, sometimes I do one half, and they say equal to.
1 over 2. 1 over 2 is equal to.
So two.
One half is equal to.
1
It's gonna be 2
and a
over,
half.
Yeah.
2 over 1 is 2.
No, they say 1 half, like if you just have a half.
This is what my kids will do, solve the problem, and this is what the answer, and then they will say that.
Because they're saying 2 divided by 1 and 1 divided by 2.
They doing the back. Cause,
Because we teach us fractions or division
I
problems.
do all the time.
right,
And then
but they doing it
they're
back,
saying 2, because they say the big number's always gonna be the number that you, is
like 2 divided by 1.
the dividend, the dividend. That's what they're
Yeah,
doing.
that's what they do. Yeah, we'll understand what they did. If we see Rick, we know what they did.
I did,
Oh,
cause I told them, I told them that this is a proper fraction.
Yeah, it's not
It's
improper.
Right.
proper,
This
it's
is
less
their
than
discount
1, so how
here.
could it be 2?
this next year, this count that we all working together.
Oh, well. I was trying to make it right.
Okay, I'm looking at this. Denominator.
So we got to look ahead of
We
us.
wanna say.
We're talking, because denominator,
I mean, they compare numbers by the.
Understand that the denominator, it represents the intervals.
Wait, yeah, divide a fraction by a whole, and whole numbers by a fraction.
On a number
Is
line.
that
Between two whole numbers.
Oh,
Is that what?
That's it.
the intervals between.
No, you can't say between two whole
Yeah.
numbers.
the interval,
It represents
Then
one
you
whole
get up
number
here,
to the
you
next.
see what's happening.
interval,
It's
interval.
still, y'all always look
Between.
at the singles and
Then it's
doubles.
not gonna be 6, it's gonna have to be at 6. Y'all understand what I'm just saying?
Intervals,
Can I put vice versa?
intervals. On the number line.
Okay, put that,
Fractions
okay.
by a whole.
The intervals,
Divide fractions by a whole.
don't tell me.
And whole numbers.
Well, if you say
You said
six,
right.
if it's 6, you know it's 6 places between each number, each whole number. Well, I mean, 6 slots, that's what I'm saying.
That's
Six
just-
So
slots.
that's why we don't say like interval on the number line, and that way
That's
we
right,
got,
we don't have to worry
we
about
don't have to worry
that.
about the other part, because
Yeah.
as a teacher, you're
And
supposed to
then,
know.
we gotta say something about comparison,
Well, what we saying?
because on the second part it's equivalent.
Yeah.
Okay, say it.
Not creating, what word I wanna use,
They start less than and greater than, because that's what it says right here,
Yeah.
using
Well, we
less
gotta
than,
do both
equal
of them.
to, or greater than.
Okay,
first you
so,
gotta compare, cause you can't compare until you, I mean, you can't do less than greater than until you compare them first.
oh, right, okay,
I
so
mean,
Kim
you
was saying,
make them equivalent, well, this is.
Show, discover, I don't know, discover equivalency of fractions, because that's what that second part is, am
it
I?
says representing,
Mhm.
represent,
Because on one
Or they
thing,
can determine the, relationship between two
Fractions.
fractions.
equivalent fractions.
Equivalent fractions.
Yeah,
determine the ratio.
Relationship between two equivalent.
equivalent fractions.
Yes, that would take care of whether they are less than or greater than.
The
that's what you're on.
relationship.
I heard him over there whispering.
Between, y'all gonna know what this say. Two,
Two or more fractions. Cause we don't know if they trying to do 3,
I don't know why these kids text me.
or more,
fractions.
okay.
Cause that'll get equal to, equivalency, or,
That's it? Oh, we got another one.
what's
I
the
think
next?
that covers it. Let's
Yep.
go to-
Okay, let's
Go
go.
on, let's go to number 4.
What we do, multiplying, dividing, adding, what is that? Oh, I have to read.
Here, here's this.
It says, expand, understand
where they,
Okay.
they compare two different fractions with different
Denominators.
numerators
And different
and the different
Oh, okay, so
denominators.
this fourth grade,
So here we've changed, we've gone from having the same
just denominator
Same
denominator
denominator
to
to different.
different
And
numerators.
and numerator.
Right.
Yeah, they comparing that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I never did that.
Didn't understand the fraction and A over B with A is less than one, it's less than one. Fraction of one over B.
And they have to know that it's smaller the number,
Decompose the fraction to smaller fraction.
smaller the
Denominator, the hard sort.
Yeah.
So they were trying to make it big.
Yep.
One 1/8 or 1/4. I don't know.
1/8.
I'm like, look at it.
Look, you can have an
See, when they see it, they make it different. I want that piece. When you say you want this right,
Exactly.
makes it different when you see it then.
So they learn to compare, okay, so they're comparing fractions with different numerators and denominators.
So you wanna write that?
Mm. By creating common denominators.
Yeah, you gonna have to,
Yep.
that's the only way.
Comparing different. That's what y'all see, right?
Uh-huh.
You want to paint numerators
And denominators. By creating common denominators, or numerators, it says.
denominators by comparing.
That probably won't beat me.
By comparing of. What you say comparing what?
New, denominators, by comparing, common, by creating, what we said,
Just mark it out for creating,
yeah, just
common denominator.
by creating common denominators.
Creating. Common denominator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then,
The next part is really just
adding with the same number, fractions with the same,
taking a fraction and breaking it down
yeah.
to keep.
So keep in mind, you wanna focus on that those three components that builds from the other thing. So I think you got the building part, where it was light denominators.
Now it's different.
Okay.
So then we gotta go up here,
Yeah.
and then right here, but then we gotta say something about adding, because down here they adding,
And
but then up
multiplying.
here they start multiplying.
No, down here it's
Oh, they
multiplying on
multiplying?
4, right there.
But then-
That's just, I knew how that one went with that one after that,
Yep,
when I looked at
So
it.
what we saying?
Cause the next one was
You
division.
need to talk about multiplying on here?
yeah.
We talked about adding first.
And
Then, but no,
Wait,
taking what they did was they took a fraction and they broke it down.
yeah, and then added the parts back up, like 3/8
Decompose.
equals 1/8
Decompose.
plus 1/8 plus 1/8.
Yeah, that's decomposing.
Right.
Yeah.
Unifractions.
But then, down here, they start multiplying fractions by whole numbers.
Uh-huh.
So in fourth grade, they multiply fractions by whole numbers, and then in fifth grade, they multiply fractions by fractions.
Gotcha.
In some way, then that's like repeated addition.
Yeah,
When they're saying 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8, but it's 3 times 1/8.
that's what this
Three
is.
groups of 1/8.
Right, that's what kind of called it.
So decomposing fractions to,
Show that multiplication is
Yeah.
repeated.
yeah,
It's
as
the
addition.
same as addition, cause they start out with that, they'll say, do this right here. One cat plus one cat plus one cat, and then they say one plus one plus one, then they say 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8, that's the way they teach it.
Right.
so decomposing the fractions leading up to
Repetitive multiplication.
yeah, to apply multiplication of
So,
fractions.
are we ready? What
Yeah.
we said?
Right, I think it's here.
Right here.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's
it's here.
writing.
Decomposing fractions. Okay, should I say showing repetitiveness that leads up to multiplication?
Showing.
should they be sleeping
Repeating
down
fraction.
there?
Addition of
Right.
repeated fraction that leads up
Yeah,
to
we can see
multiplication.
what's going on.
Addition.
Mhm.
But like, when you in, you know, switch bed and they here, like we even got some here.
Right.
They
Fraction,
can't do
you
this.
know, or
So
fractions.
that's what I'm saying.
Addition of repeated
Quarters,
fractions.
they don't
of
know,
fractions.
they all,
So
That's
that's
right.
Lead up
fractions.
to
bed and keep them on,
All
they still don't know.
leading to
Right.
So they
multiplication.
don't be.
But then we gotta have something where they multiplying fraction by whole numbers.
to the.
Well, that's what that is.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Cause
Mhm.
3 times
Yeah.
1/8 is 3/8.
Yes.
So you add 1, 2, 3 of them. So
Yes.
3 times, yeah.
Yeah, we got that.
Really?
Whoop, okay now, go
And
with
up here
5.
is pretty easy because they just go from multiplying fraction by a whole number to fractions by a fraction.
We got the division too.
And then they're dividing, or wait, are they?
It-
They divided down here also. In fourth grade, they divided fractions as well.
Yeah, they showed it, put it here.
Yes, they do.
But
they
remember,
divide
all the
fraction by
standards, it's gonna
fraction.
include all the standards, this is
Oh,
a
okay.
picture.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Because there it is right there.
That's how we did the same change flip. They don't call it, they.
Girl, you better not say
You guys have
Oh, no.
multiplied by the reciprocal or,
that. KCR, baby.
or the
Wow.
multiplicative reciprocal.
KCR.
or-
Kansas City
It's not
Real.
on here, it's not on here, but they do it.
So
Give me a
up
key
here,
to
I would
this
say, they learn to interpret it, or they,
Learn to interpret what?
Division of a unit fraction by a non-zero number.
yeah.
Okay, learn. Right?
They learn to reciprocate the second number.
Learn to reciprocate the second number. 'Cause I'm getting ready right now.
That's fine.
During division, they learn to reciprocate the second number. That's what they do.
But look at the, this fifth grade?
Yeah.
Look at the,
The
look
fourth
at
grade.
the examples, what's going on in the
But they're
example.
not, they're multiplying other numbers, like 1/3 divided by 4.
Mhm.
They're learning to, divide a fraction by a whole number.
Exactly.
Learn to divide fraction by whole number. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Learn to divide.
Oh, okay, I just did the whole, I did the step.
Because
Yeah,
the
we did.
reciprocal part could be either or, which it builds in the sixth grade and what they do in the
Yeah.
sixth grade. Look
Yeah.
at the examples in sixth grade. How is that different
No,
from
but
fifth
what
grade?
I'm saying is, what you mean either or?
Well, you said that they, you said they reciprocate, but we wanna really focus on what they doing, these whole numbers for the fifth grade.
Okay.
Not
Learn to
just-
divide
they are
fraction by whole
fractions.
number.
Okay.
Okay, for that.
So the sixth grade is dividing the fraction by a fraction.
Exactly.
Yes. They learn to divide fraction by fraction instead of a whole number.
Yeah.
So that's what you put in there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to the actual solving problem.
Yeah.
So, and also, we know in the sixth grade, I think there's some application or something going on too.
Right, I was gonna say apply to more life, like,
Yep.
situations.
Must drop it, the person get 3 people share.
You said apply.
So they go into word problems too.
That's all we said.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
So, my question is, what were some important findings, if we went through this process, what were some important things you kind of, what's your takeaway? What's some important things, some aha moments that you noticed about this progression?
If they miss one step, they messed up.
Okay.
Everything built on. Yeah.
You
They
must
missed
have the
they-
foundation from the previous grade level.
And then a lot of times, people think that kindergarten to second grade are not testing grades.
But it's
They
important.
feel like there's a way, and they don't
But it
think about
does
how
once they get
important
up here.
that those
I mean,
standards are.
yes, we know
It's
this.
kind of-
Right,
Yeah, because they don't hit it hard there, the kids are automatically behind.
right. That's why they tell them, prepare them on our end, basically we saying like, prepare them.
Get those numbers ready.
That's like with, like for instance, last year with COVID, some of these kids that were in the 5th grade missed some of this
Right.
in the end,
Of the fourth
so
grade.
they was playing catch up. So
Right.
to me, their learning's gonna be gapped a little bit
Right.
on,
Right.
because they missed it, and all of them,
Right.
all grades
Yep.
They missed a fourth. If y'all, we realized that was a fourth
of the year, yeah.
Yeah, you think about
The class that we got was kind of like, they were more advanced, but this class is coming up now, they are behind. And we missed out on some, you could tell we missed out on some stuff, even with the reading and, stuff, they could tell that they came. So they had the summer gap plus.
Right.
And it would really take a situation like this where you sit down and map these standards. Okay, this is the standard they did, so you gotta make sure we hit this, so they will, cause this feed into the sixth grade standard, and it's this feeds, you gotta really, this is the time.
But
you
it's
have to sit down.
hard,
It's
also,
hard.
because
Do
you're
the
trying
ones
to.
you have to do
Yeah,
for your
that's
own
right.
grade level.
That's
because of testing.
Right.
Yes.
Right, that's what kind of Zern kind of did, but then it would, how do you have time to work it into when I gotta do my whole first grade?
Right.
ELA was the same
Four-
way, it was
four
really
lessons a
hard.
Yeah, 4 lessons a week, I didn't have time to go back and get what they missed from
Yeah, and that's what they pushing for this year is, teacher leaders talking about they just plug in. As you come along, plug
Right.
in, don't go back at the beginning of the year and try to fit all that old stuff.
Right, so
Oh,
I guess
that's a
if you
good
come
one.
into a standard in first grade that you know they missed at the end of kindergarten or whatever, go back and kind of,
Then you got the front load right there in
Yeah.
between them. Yeah.
okay.
And it's going to be some small groups, some interventions, a lot of interventions, cause they all missed it, it's not like
Yeah.
one, two
Right.
kids.
Yeah.
I think y'all might answer this question. It says, what happens if the teacher does not teach the standards? And I think we kind of beat that.
Yeah,
If they don't teach it, then the kids will not
be ready.
be ready. That is so true. All right, so we have a couple questions, reflections. It's in the PowerPoint. How do the students, how do you use what they know about the whole numbers to develop and understanding fractions? How do students use what they know about whole numbers to develop understanding of fractions? And second question, how does the learning from primary grades support fraction understanding in the intermediate grades?
I think we kinda talked about the last one,
Mm-hmm.
because they learn the basics of it in the, what a fourth looks like, what a third looks like. And then they get away from that picture and, like you said, they go from one cat, two cats, three cats to
Yes.
1, 2, 3 to,
And then they have to go to the,
They do the work.
fractions themselves, and it starts to be more mental.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
right.
And then how do the students use it?
About what they know about whole numbers to develop that understanding of fraction.
Will they learn a whole number is there's parts to a whole number.
Right.
And plus then they start understanding that the bigger number I have in my denominator, the smaller the piece.
Right.
Yeah.
It takes more of that to make a whole.
Yeah.
And then they understand that because we teach that fractions are decimals and also fractions are
Right.
division problems.
Right.
So they know when they divide, if it's a proper fraction, when they divide, they're gonna get less than one. Improper
Yeah,
fraction, they will get more than one. So
Right.
they start to understand like that.
All right, well, I hope y'all be able to take this back and kind of, as the summer progress, think about your standards and how we connect, because like I said, it could be done all the way from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. And a lot of times we have to go back because our kids are kind of behind, and we have to come up with a plan to get them on grade level, so I appreciate it. The time for the makeup session.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Are you recording, baby?
Hold on.
Okay.
Mary, I hit the red button?
Yes, ma'am.